Welcome to Valuable Coaching. Today we look at how to get recruited with Coach Kevin Pratte from Wave Volleyball. All right, welcome to this edition of Valuable Coaching. Today we're lucky to have the guy who's usually sitting right beside me, Kevin Pratte, to talk a little bit today about his role at Wave Volleyball as a recruiting coordinator, where he's been for the last 7 years. He's been able to send kids, from their club in boys volleyball to places like University of Hawaii, Grand Canyon University, Stanford, UCLA, and he's going to try and give us a little more insight into how he helps these kids really get recruited, get seen, and then, be prepared to answer questions from these Division I coaches who are, really looking for, strong players. So it's great to be actually interviewing you today, Kevin. I know you played at University of Pacific. I think both of us kind of had to do a little bit of marketing of yourself. I think boys volleyball, there's a lot of that. And so it's great that you're there giving them the tools to set this up. So, welcome today to being the guest.
Yeah, it's a different chair I'm in today, Miles, but I honestly appreciate what you're doing. I know that some people have been texting and calling, and I think that today what we can show the viewer and the student athlete is just some of the tricks of the trades, if you may, for lack of a better term, or kind of how to navigate through the process of getting recruited, because it's constantly changing. And there's some things that parents and student athletes probably need to know that will help themselves market the student athlete better.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I think any info we can give those kids, because I know I was lost. I had a coach that was, he was pretty helpful to me, but he was also pretty loyal to one school. And so he was really just trying to get me to go where he went. And so, there's so many more options now. We were just talking about this before we started, how many more options there are for boys volleyball, where to go. And, I think sometimes girls too, there's more options even than they think, even though there's a lot of Division I programs. There's a lot of programs that are Division II, III, community college programs even that would give them a great leg up. It would give them just a great opportunity to continue playing. So, let's jump right into this. And, when do athletes really start getting recruited? I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily understand. I've had middle school athletes saying they're being recruited, which I'm a little skeptical of. And then, there's high school students that still haven't really started the process, maybe even as a junior or senior, and they're probably a little late in the game. So when would you say is a great time for them to kind of really start looking at this?
Well, the short answer is probably like sophomore year as a high school boys volleyball player. I would say 8th, 9th grade for girls volleyball. To give a little bit more of a long-winded answer is, it depends what's going on with the NCAA rules. They're starting to kind of crack down where they're not trying to get kids to commit as early. There's been girls volleyball players that have committed to Nebraska or Minnesota or a Pac-12 school in 8th grade, which is cool in many ways, but in a lot of ways, when you're in 8th grade, you really know what you're going to major in, and you know what you're going to be like when you're, 13 years old to when you're going to be 18.
Yeah, that's a great point. That makes me think of, we had Allie McCullough on, formerly Allie Daly, and she talked about how she was just so excited to go to Long Beach State. And again, it wasn't a knock on Long Beach State, but once she got there, the volleyball program was great, but she also was there for school, and school wasn't everything that she thought. So as an 8th grader, yeah, if you're choosing a top volleyball school, it may not have the academic program you want. So
yeah, but another, I think, important point to make is, you're technically always getting recruited if you're going to their camps, which a lot of kids do by the time they're 8th, 9th grade. Or if a coach is walking around Junior Olympics Convention Center or these big tournaments, whether you email them or not, they might stroll onto your court to watch another athlete and happen to see you. So if you're playing club volleyball or high-level high school volleyball, you're kind of already getting recruited. Obviously, you'll get recruited better if you market yourself more and throw yourself out there. But I think it's naive for an athlete to think like, oh, it doesn't matter how I look right now in front of this coach. I haven't really emailed them yet or set that up. That's sometimes when kids get actually recruited the most, when coaches recruit them when they don't even know they're getting recruited yet.
Well, I think one thing we found too is coaches seem to talk to each other a lot. So, if you bring up a recruit in front of another coach, I would think that if they had a bad experience watching them, they might even, help. It seemed like they would even help each other out a little bit in that regard, saying like, well, geez, I watched that player and that's not the same person you're describing. I mean, do you think that's something that happens?
Absolutely. I can attest for that on the men's side. I've had conversations with high-level coaches, Pac-12 schools in the MPSF that will say, you know what, it's not a good fit for us because we have so many outside hitters, but I like that family. I like that kid. I've seen him. I'm gonna go and talk to my colleagues in the profession and see if I can help them. I've honestly seen that. It was refreshing to see Coach Sam Crossan of Cal say like, oh yeah, I constantly am talking to the Washington coach or talking to Cal Poly or Sac State. And I think they do it more than people believe. And, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of these coaches, they want to see kids succeed. They want to see the game grow. And it's great to see a kid go to a college institution to play volleyball and earn a major.
And you're going to get to know those kids pretty well and those families well when you maybe start recruiting them in 8th grade. And by the time they're a junior or senior and they're ready to commit somewhere. So that's great that they would do that. What do you think some of the main steps that players need to take in order to get recruited? Maybe start on the boys' side where it's maybe a little more necessary to take some steps, and then maybe kind of give us your take on what it means. Like if you're a high school and club athlete on the girls' side who's, maybe not going to be looked at by, really big Division I, but you need to maybe market yourself to some other types of schools. What would you do in their situation as well?
That's a good question, Miles. I would encourage any athlete that wants to get recruited, envision when you start the process that when you send a video or an email, you're trying to send like a little trailer to a Hollywood production movie. So a little bit of a snippet of you hitting the ball against the block, playing against a high-level team, showing how high you jump, showing your skills of passing a volleyball. I think what a lot of student athletes sadly do is they show themselves like passing a free ball in an empty gym or serving a serve with no one receiving it, and they think that's important. And I've even been guilty of that, 15 years ago when I was doing my recruiting videos. So you want to put yourself against high-level competition, showing yourself jumping, and it's okay, in my humble opinion, and what I've been told by coaches, if you just do a 2-3 minute video so the coach can go, okay, I see how you're jumping. I see how you're moving. I see your platform. I see your setting location. Another thing you want to do is you want to write an email. Now, it could be your flavor. The best thing you should do as a recruit is be yourself. So if I were to write an email, mine would be probably maybe a little bit more lengthy than other, and that's fine. That's who I am. Some might be real short and to the point. That's okay. You don't want it to be a novel, but, you basically want to write your GPA. That's really important. You want to write how high you jump in a standing approach. You want your approach jump. You want to send your transcript along the way. And some great advice that Coach Fisher gave me at the University of Pittsburgh, you want to write a sentence or two of why you'd want to go to Pitt. It's okay. A lot of student athletes copy and paste every email and then change just the coach's name and stuff. Coaches know that. And when they read the email and go, this is pretty generic, put something like, I'd like to attend Pittsburgh because I want to see 4 seasons as a California student athlete. I've seen what you've done in the ACC, and I've seen that you've gone on to win and have a winning program. I want to be part of that. Something that simple. I think that's a really good start, at least. Email, CC your coach in it, CC your director of club in it, and then a little video, or you can simply just show a video, to be honest, Miles, of you playing a full match. There's nothing wrong with that too. Just make sure it's pretty good.
Yeah. And I know we've asked all our coaches that we've interviewed so far, and it does sound like they like to see practice also. So, allowing them a glimpse into practice. And like you said, not practice of you with a coach in an empty gym, but you practicing high-level competition and being able to show somebody, hitting some pretty tough serves that you passing, you serving tough against, against the serve receive. So, I think that's all great advice. That was one of the best tips I got in trying to sell myself way back 15 or 20 years ago, almost at this point, was to send a match video. And frankly, that's almost easier to do. I think in this day and age, it's pretty easy to grab a phone, splice up a little highlight video, but, getting a good chunk of a match is a great way to see how somebody plays.
I think you brought up a really good point. I think once you get that initial contact and emails have been exchanged, it's okay to say, hey, by the way, this is practice from 2 weeks after we talked on the phone. We discussed that I need to continue to working on my passing. Here's me passing and what I've worked on. It's okay to humanize recruiting. Some of the best advice I've received is it's all right to initial in that email say, Coach, I want to make it well aware that I'm working on my platform. Passing hasn't come super easy for me. I continue to work with my personal coach and my team, and that's something I'm working on. However, I think I'm a high leaper and, have a high volleyball IQ and am hungry to get better. I think coaches like that. I mean, they like – because once you get on their team, they're going to pick you apart and try to get you better at all kinds of skills. So that's a good point, Miles, is it's okay to constantly send them video updates. And don't be discouraged if they don't write back. These coaches, as you've heard on the podcast, they have wives, they have kids, they have husbands, they have to coach, they have to recruit, they have to do grade checks. They are extremely busy. So don't be discouraged if they don't write back.
Yeah, definitely. You got to just kind of stick with it. And, they will get back to you at some point, but yeah, they're definitely busy. And I think you brought up, another great point is just to be yourself. Again, the kind of the word that we keep hearing from all these coaches is that they think good coaches are authentic. I mean, that means that good players are authentic. And we've seen too how different coaches kind of want, although they want a lot of the same volleyball skills, some of them want slightly different personalities on their team, so that there's not one kind of cookie cutter way to put it. And like you said, putting something in there authentic as to why you want to go to that school is very important, because that also means that you're researching the school and you know something more about it than just, hey, this is a great volleyball program, I want to go there. We kind of already touched on that, but
little moments of when a coach is reading it, goes, oh, they're into that we're Pittsburgh and we're in the ACC, or they're into that we're Cal and we're a public school in California. Those little things actually go a long way, because you're really trying to market yourself really at the end of the day so the coach can just watch you play at a club tournament. That's really what your goal is, the first couple initial emails.
Yeah, and if you're able to say what major you want to and recognize that school has it, that's probably important too, because, again, you don't want somebody who's searching out their academics as they're also trying to perform. It's a busy life as a student athlete, and you kind of have to already have your path picked out. I don't remember being around a lot of college athletes that were undecided on their major. A lot of them already seemed to know what they were going to do right when they got there. So that's something they should be looking at. Do you think it's really better to play club volleyball, or can you just be a high school athlete and get recruited? Do you need some of both? Are camps the way to go? Again, if I'm a high school athlete that is playing really well, but my family maybe just can't afford club volleyball, it's kind of expensive. I can maybe afford a couple camps here and there. What would be a good path for me to try and show that I'm still recruitable, even though I'm not playing, volleyball all year round?
Yeah, so I had a little experience being a college coach for about 5 years, so dealt with recruiting there, and then I've now been a recruiting coordinator at Wave for 6 years. And I will tell you this: every time I've helped a young man or young lady get recruited, every story's different because every story's different. They come from a different financial background. They're from different parts of the country. And my point is, however you carve your niche, go all in. So if you can't afford club, then crush high school and get really good at high school, and then be really upfront with that college coach. Like, I'm not playing club for this reason. Also, I would encourage, if kids can't play club, there's sometimes programs at clubs where you can go to the director and find a way. And it really comes back to having grit, and that's what recruiting comes down to. Like, do you have the grit, the presence of mind to go to a club director and go, look, this is what I can't afford. I'd be happy to help coach your 12s twos team and volunteer if I can get some type of discount, all those kind of things. And when it comes to camps, I would strongly encourage any athlete to go to a camp, because you're basically on the campus, staying in the dorm rooms, you're eating at the dining hall, and then you really are seeing how that coach coaches in an environment at the university. Now, all college coaches will not recruit while they're doing camps. They're not really allowed to. They have to wait till the camp's over. However, they definitely will see you at camp. They'll watch you, and that's great. And you can't obviously go to every camp, but to answer your question, if you can do it, Miles, do them all if you're ambitious. But if you can only do certain things due to financial reasons, whatever you decide, be upfront with that college coach and go all in with what it is.
Yeah. I mean, these college coaches are definitely very human, and they appreciate people's honesty and their stories. I think too, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but beach volleyball is growing quite a bit. We happen to live in San Diego, where it's, pretty accessible. And obviously if you're in somewhere like LA, where it's been big, or certain beaches up in Northern California, but it seems to be growing across the country. And so that could be a way where a lot of times, if you can find a court that's somewhere, doesn't have to be the best beach court in the world, but you just need a ball and a few other people, and you can still get touches in the off season. You don't have to pay a lot of money. So
you nailed it. I mean, I know, and I'm just talking about the guys we've already interviewed and the people we know really well, but Coach Fisher at Pittsburgh's huge on that. He wants you playing beach all the time. Coach Thomas, before our interview, when we were just talking, he showed us a picture on his phone of someone playing at a chain link fence and a ball going over a chain link fence. His point was, if you don't have the financial means, there's ways you can play. And I actually think if you show a coach like, hey, I'm playing beach because of this, and a little of it's financial, that's going to show that you have grit. And grit's a big, buzzword right now in our, world of recruiting.
yeah.
And when you show that you're tenacious and you want to get after it, that's something a college coach will be attracted to. So, yes, beach volleyball, grass volleyball, I think is a really good avenue. Miles, that's a good point.
So next thing, some people are out there, and I've dealt with this with kids in other sports, again, they're just middle schoolers that I'm teaching, but they talk to me about the sports they play when we're out, in class having conversation. And there's some of them that seem to be paying agencies to help them get recruited. Some of these things, I've looked them up after kids have told me about them. They can be pretty pricey. Do you think those are worth the money? Or in this day and age with social media and with, again, the ease of being able to edit some of your own videos and send emails and, find contacts for people, do you think that's worth it? Or do you think people really can show maybe a little bit more just by being, like you said, gritty and searching people out and doing kind of their own information seeking?
It's a really good point. What I would encourage families to do is scan your environment. I can speak for Wave. If you're at Wave, you probably don't need a college recruiter coordinator. You have one with me on the boys' side and Kevin Hodge on the women's side. So if you're at a big time club, and what I mean by big time is if you walk around, you're like, oh, there's an Olympian coaching that team. That's a former college coach. You probably don't need it because they're going to be able to help you. there's some clubs that just don't have the means and they focus on other things in their club. And that's okay. That might not be their mission to get kids to go play college. Their mission might be able to coach the fundamentals and, coach life skills, whatever that is. So I think it's really important to scan your environment. I also think there are actually, I really do. I know, like Cara Hill, I think is amazing, and she's a dear friend of mine, and she does a great job. And yes, she has a standard and a price, but she gets it done. And she specializes in girls, but she also does the guys too. And again, I think that's where you scan your environment. Some families have the means to do it. When parents come up to me and say, we're thinking about doing this and joining this organization, I say, hey, I don't know if it's necessary, but I said, it's not going to hurt. I think having more, but I also think, especially on the boys side, I'm going to talk about the boys for a second. There's only 22 Division I volleyball programs, and there's not that many NAIA, and Division III is popping up. But if you're paying a recruiting coordinator thousands and thousands of dollars, you're basically going to write one email. You're going to copy and paste it for the most part, change a few things, and you're going to do an interview. But your interviews are similar with all the coaches. So I think on the men's side, it's just so small, you don't need it as much. I think on the women's side, it can get big, large. There's Division II, there's Division III. And again, I would encourage you to scan your environment. If you're a family and you're like, we absolutely have no idea, there are certain recruiter coordinators that are really good. And at the end of the day, Miles, I think if you're having a recruiting coordinator, you're getting them because they've formed relationships with these coaches, right? And as a recruiting coordinator, you're like, this kid's really good because of A, B, and C. You should really take a look at him. And there could be some merit to that. So, but I am a firm believer too that you could do recruiting coordinating all by yourself and you don't need a coordinator for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Women's volleyball is big. So I could see how you might need somebody to help you navigate that. But that brings back to the point of just being a student athlete, knowing that going to college that's what it is. So, I think before maybe you jump out there and pay that money out, if you do some research on the type of major you want, the type of area you want to be in, you probably start narrowing it down a little bit and you can tackle it maybe a little easier than that. But again, there may be people who just really want to play and they need somebody who just has great relationships and can go, oh, well, you know what? I know this school in this state is going to be looking for somebody at that spot. You might fit it. Like, let's get you there. So.
Yeah, and I think with women's volleyball, it can make sense too if you maybe pay for a recruiting coordinator and then they get you a full scholarship. Yeah. I mean, I get that. I also don't want to give a misconception to our viewers. At the end of the day, just by getting a recruiting coordinator or watching this video, it does not mean you're going to play college volleyball, with all due respect. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to be good. You got to be able to jump. You got to be able to hit. You got to be coachable. Yes, having grit and figuring out how to get recruited, that's huge. Don't get me wrong, but you have to bring their program to better volleyball heights, and you got to bring their program to get better and win more matches. And if, by the way, you're great at life skills, if you're great in the classroom, that's also important. And if you're not, they're probably going to cross you off the list. But at the end of the day, too, while you're doing all this, you got to be getting better at volleyball and showing that you're improving. That's important, too, I think, for recruits to know. I think sometimes they come to me or other recruiting coordinators and they just think, oh, we know Kevin, he'll get us on somewhere. It's like, no, you got to have a lot of things lined up.
Yeah, I think, too, I've seen younger athletes get approached by colleges, again, maybe in eighth grade, freshman year of high school, and they kind of almost then, it's not that they become arrogant or they get too cocky, but there is a little bit of that. It's pretty easy for your brain to switch on, like, oh, I'm already getting recruited, I can just kind of keep doing what I'm doing and I'll be good enough. And that oftentimes isn't the case. There's a lot of development that happens between 13 and 18 years old in terms of growth and strength and things. So you definitely can't just turn it off if somebody's getting if you're getting looks at, freshman year. Again, I can go back to thinking about somebody like Allie who talked about getting recruited. I remember watching her in high school because we went to the same place, and yeah, she was awesome. But if she didn't keep working and she just kind of stood pat at where she was, she wasn't going to be going to a Division I school. She would have just kind of coasted in probably to a, lower level Division I or Division II school where, she'd make a difference, but not become, obviously the high level professional that she was. So
recruiting doesn't build character, it reveals it.
Yeah.
And I think one thing, if you're a parent, let your kid go through the process. Let him learn. Be there. Help guide that student athlete. But it is really important that your son or daughter picks up the phone and says, I'm not interested in your school for A, B, and C, and be very, very respectful about it. Coaches admire that. And as an athlete, don't be afraid to do that. Also, though, when you start the process, cast a really wide net. Like, don't say no yet. I mean, figure out the landscape. You got to figure out what level you're at. And maybe when you're 14 years old, 15, you might think, oh, I'd never go play in this region of the country. But then you realize, like, later, you love volleyball so much. Yeah, and that major works for me and that school works. So, but I think it's so important while you go through the process, like, be honest, be impeccable of your word. And, that'll be fun for the parents to see, because it's really going to reveal who you are. And it's going to only help you later in life when, like, you have to resign from a position, or you have to go and, like, go to bat for yourself to go get a job. All these things are helpful. You're building great life skills during this process.
Yeah, that's really true. It definitely does make you have to step outside of your comfort zone for some of these kids. And so with that being said, you brought up parent involvement. You've been at it on the coaching side, and now you're at it as, trying to help these kids move on. Have you had instances where parents really have kind of, maybe when you're a coach, kind of turned you off to a player because you didn't want somebody there, maybe being a little overbearing? And then, how involved do you think they should be in the recruiting process now that you're on this side of it, helping their parents, move along?
Yes, that's
their kids.
The point is, look, the reality is there's times when the parents have to get involved, and I get it. And I'll be honest with you, just, I'm not going in particular order how to answer this question, but I've had college coaches where, like, they do ask and they say, oh, are the parents married? What's the household like? And I think that's a fair question in the right setting, because you want you're taking a student athlete and you're taking his norms and values and you're bringing it into your program. And at the end of the day, those student athletes, that's your livelihood. That's how you bring, money home to your family and provide for your family. So I think it's important that the parents are involved in that sense, whatever it is, single parent, married, like, you want to model good behavior for your child. And so the parents know that you're raising a good young man or a good young woman. I think it's okay to let the child fail a little bit with the recruiting, because us coaches, when we're at JOs and we're eating together and the coaches are all talking, the college coaches, yeah, they talk about, oh yeah, I'm recruiting this kid, and you can totally tell his parents are writing the emails. And it is obvious when a parent is writing the email and the athlete is. At the end of the day, the coach is going to deal with the athlete. That's who they're going to deal with when they go to college. They're never going to talk to the parent in college. They might say, your child's doing really well with volunteer work with us, and we're really proud with his development. And they might say that like 2 or 3 times during the process of your son or daughter playing college.
Yeah.
But they're going to talk to your child every day about all kinds of things. So you really want your child to steer the car on that, on recruiting. However, is it okay for a parent to go to the unofficial or official visit? Absolutely. And I'm sure we can get in the difference of what those are, but it's okay for a parent to be present and show that they support and love their child. But at the end of the day, the child is going to be becoming an adult in this process, and you got to let them do it. And so But I think, for example, like on the men's side, I don't think it's appropriate for the child to talk about how much they can afford for the school when they're dealing with this, because men's volleyball has 4.5 scholarships, so sometimes kids not on a full volleyball scholarship. So yeah, that's when the parents get involved, when it's already like pretty much a done deal, and to say, look, this is what we can afford, this is what we're working with. Absolutely, the parents are involved at that point. But I think, again, that comes back to have the social and emotional intelligence, scan your environment, and know when it's time to intervene as a parent. And then also ask a club director, ask the club coach. Those are great resources for you.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great answer. And again, like think back, like I don't know that my parents were involved. I don't know if your parents were involved much. I mean, they drove me to the school, but other than that, like I was kind of on my own. And I think it, like you said, it really helped develop, you know, us like some character doing that. And I've seen a lot of other kids have to do that same thing. And, you know, it reveals who they are, you know, how hard they're willing to work. And I've seen some that work really hard at it and others that don't. And, you know, it shows in the end where they end up going and what they end up being able to achieve. You know, you brought up, the different types of visits, you know, an unofficial visit, an official visit. You know, some people are just trying to get started on this. And, you know, how do you start the process just with the email like we talked about, and then, you know, you go watch a game, you know, you meet some people. Does that count as an unofficial visit? How does all that work, if you can break it down a little bit?
Yeah, very good. The best advice I can give any athlete if they really want to get recruited, very rarely. I've actually never heard of a coach saying no to an unofficial visit. So in a nutshell, what's an unofficial visit? An unofficial visit is by the time you're like a junior, if you're a men's player, maybe a sophomore if you're a girls player. You contact the coach through email and go, Coach, I'm strongly encouraged to play at your school. I really want to play for you. I know you haven't seen me play much. May I please watch a practice? And then it's important that the NCAA's rules are constantly changing. You got to look at the NCAA clearinghouse rules, and the college coach can help navigate that for you. But when you are eligible to go on an unofficial visit, you simply can go to that school, watch the program practice, and then it's like literally like an unofficial like interview, and you get to talk to the coach and you kind of have one-on-one time with them. Anyone that wants to get recruited, that beats making a video. That probably beats talking to a college recruiting coordinator. That beats is even with them seeing you play, because you show up to the campus, you're showing you're interested, and then you get to display who you are. So look the part, act the part, dress nice that day. You know, maybe if you're a male, put on a polo shirt, nice pair of jeans. If you're female, you know, dress up, you know, nice to that, like what I said for the guys, you know, and the reason is you want to take pride in yourself. And so I think that's really important. That's an unofficial visit. Official visits are a little different, but every athlete should strive to do unofficials. And you can do as many unofficials as you want. You could spend a summer visiting all schools, or your spring break or your winter break. And you could do it when they have a match that day. You can show up early and talk to the coach. And that's a really good thing to do, unofficial visits.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it would be great for people to be able to see a practice and also see, you know, a game. You get a chance to see how that coach coaches in both environments, just like coaches want to see players, you know, both in practice and in games. Sometimes, you know, the competition of a match brings out the best in people. Sometimes it brings out some of the worst parts of people. And, you know, practice, maybe, you know, maybe you see something that they're teaching that you're like, oh my gosh, that, you know, I really need that. Or you're going, oh, you know, I don't know, this doesn't feel right to me. So, you know, seeing both of those things, that's something I would encourage. It'd be great to be able to see both practice and games.
Also, too, you'll realize if that's a good university for you. Like, go to the dining hall, buy yourself a meal, go check out the dorm room, go on your own campus tour. An unofficial one is you got to kind of really spearhead the visit, and you got to be in charge of the visit. Also know this too. This is really important. Just because you go on an unofficial visit and the coaching staff gives you a little bit of time and meets with you, does not necessarily mean they're recruiting you. It means that you're opening the door and saying, hey, please recruit me, 100%. Mm-hmm. But it does, don't think like, oh, I went to a UC school in California, they let me watch practice, I'm now getting recruited by them. And then stop your recruiting. Like, no, don't do that at all. Yeah. Keep going, keep with the process.
Yeah, so now again, the next step, the coach contact you back for an official visit, and then what would that kind of look like for a player?
Generally, an official visit, from what I've done in my 7 years of experience and my 5 years of being a college coach and being a college athlete, generally when you're getting asked for an official, you've most likely already been on an unofficial. You've already been to like a camp at the school. The coach has watched you play 3, 4, 10 times. And how you know a coach is watching you is they're in their polo and they're standing around your court and they're watching. And they're emailing you. Before they ask an official, they're calling you. To have an official visit too, make sure that you go to the NCAA clearinghouse, you clear up all that. That's where you like submit your SAT scores, you submit your transcripts, because the NCAA's got to make sure that you're eligible to be a Division I, II, or III athlete. Then by the time you get asked for an official, that's when you go, and the coach generally, most of the time, is asking you to play on the team and offering you some form of a scholarship. You're allowed, I believe, 5 official recruiting trips. So you got to be really careful how you choose those if you're one of those top tier college athletes. Believe it or not, most boys, Miles, don't get offered official visits. It's just not, some do, like the top tier where it's like, okay, you're going to probably come in and start. You're going to come in and be a stud. We're going to get you on an official. We're going to sign it. We're going to take you out to dinner. We're going to fly you in. There's a handful, though, a ton of athletes that I never went on an official visit, and I played for a Division I program. It was all unofficial. Women's side, I think because there's so many programs, there's a lot more official visits going on. But then on the female side, you got to be really selective of where you pick those official visits. Because you only have 5. Doesn't mean you could go on 5 official visits and go, I'm not going to go to any of those schools, and then you could pick another one and just not go on an official. Official just basically means they pay for your plane flight, they pay for your parents' flight, and they buy you a few meals, and then you get to go to like a football game, and they pay for your ticket. That's really what official is. Unofficial is you pay for everything. So don't get caught up if you go to an unofficial. Don't get discouraged if you only go to unofficials.
Yeah.
It shows you're gritty and you really want to try to go to that school. Like, at the end of the day, the coach wants you to want to play there, and however you got to do it, just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think you've covered a lot of the topics that people need to know about this. Is there any, extra little thing you think, especially in the sport of volleyball, that these student athletes could do to just set themselves apart? Is there, trying out for high performance? Are there specific camps other than just the schools they want to go to that they can participate in? I mean, what's kind of the last little tidbit you would give them if they need just kind of that last little push over the finish line?
Absolutely. I think you did a great job setting this up, Miles. Thanks. I mean, we talked about film a little bit. We talked about email structure. We talked about parent involvement. We talked about official and unofficial visits. We talked about NCAA clearinghouse. So there was a lot of meat on the bone that we talked about. However, I think what's really important, the best advice I got was from Ken Preston. He was at UC Santa Barbara, and I was interested in that school at one point. He said, we don't recruit you, you recruit us. And I thought that was like, ding, 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 like a big lightning bolt, like hit me. I was like, yeah, you're not probably as good as you think you are, and your parents think you're really good and you are. And that's great. I'm not trying to knock you down as an athlete. The reality is you got to market yourself. And if you think that these college coaches are just going to waltz over to your court and start recruiting you and they don't know your name, they don't know what high school you're at, they don't know anything about you, it's very slim. So you got to market yourself. You got to do all the things we talked about. Another thing too is another tidbit of information I'd give you is once you do all those things we talked about, once you're doing all these things and you're on your train track doing it, it's okay to write a postcard to these coaches or a thank you note after you're unofficial and make recruiting a little bit more humanized, or just show you are, or even write them an email and say, hey, coach, I just won the election of vice president of ASB. I'm now an ASB member, and I'm the president of the volunteer where we are feeding the homeless. The reason I mention that is that's what college is, guys. You're not just an athlete. You're doing all these things with these coaches. And anytime you can reach out to these coaches and say, hey, big win, and type and say, big win, I watched it on TV, congratulations. These coaches read it. And at the end of the day, yes, they want great athletes, but they all want, and you can attest for this too, Miles, we've seen on this podcast, they want real people that are authentic. And whatever that is, be who you are and show it. And I think if you do that, I think you're going to find some success, and be okay to be told no. Some coaches might just be really honest with you on Wednesday. It's not going to work out, kid. And then on to the next then. So.
Yeah, you definitely have to let those things roll off your back. I think the other thing too that I've been pleasantly surprised about with all these coaches is I don't remember one really that has said like, no, I really want them just focused on the one sport. So I mean, if you're make a basketball team, if you make another sports team, let them know that, and that just shows how you're working hard, you're staying in condition off, outside the season. And that may be something too that we didn't bring up earlier when I asked about, how do you navigate? Do you have to play club volleyball as well as high school? I mean, maybe you're just playing other sports in high school too that don't cost you anything, if much at all. So, there's lots of options. But yeah, you just got to sell yourself and be real, and then again, know that you're probably going to get told no a lot. I think in the boys volleyball world, like you said, there's only 22 Division I teams, and there's high school volleyball is growing very quickly. If you're set on going to a Division I program, you got to know like you said, you're probably not getting a scholarship, and you're probably going to get told no by a few programs, or at least get told, hey, you know what, you're probably not playing for a while. And you either need to make adjustments to that, or, you got to just try and be gritty and go there and take your knocks and move up. But great advice today.
Yeah, I think I would encourage you all to go try to get recruited. And also lastly too, remember, these coaches are human, but parents, athletes, they're not allowed to talk to you at tournaments. There's certain times. So at times coaches look very standoffish and stoic and not interested. It's not the case. Or sometimes they're not allowed to answer the phone. It's a dead period. There's all these little kind of rules. That's why it is important. Talk to your club director. Talk to your club coaches. Ask questions. And be okay if a coach says, thank you, I just can't talk to you right now. And don't be discouraged. It doesn't mean they're not recruiting you.
Yeah. Yeah. And we said too before, they're all human. They all have lives. They got lots of stuff going on, families, other things that they're coaching. So, all right. Well, I think this has been very informative today. I've frankly been looking forward to having a chance to interview you. This is very specific around recruiting and your job now at Wave. And I think it's going to be great for people to get on here and listen. And, hopefully we'll be able to pass it around and other clubs will be able to use it. And you can share that knowledge with them. And we can help get some people recruited and, again, help build that character in those young student athletes and let them fail some and let them sell themselves and, see where it takes them. Because I think we've both been finding in this adventure that, again, the worst that's going to happen is you get told no. And like you said, you move on and you ask the next person. And you'd be surprised how many people really want to tell you yes if you're willing to work hard and show them who you are and be authentic. So, that's what we're trying to do here at Valuable Coaching. And you're doing great work over there at Wave and getting kids to go to big schools. And, again, mainly helping build great young men that are willing to go out there and stand up for themselves. So, thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach Miles. And Looking forward to doing many more of these types of podcasts with you.
Yeah, me too. All right, well, I guess we'll see you guys again soon. This is gonna come out, and then we'll be able to keep knocking out some longer interviews with new coaches. We got a strength coach coming up, trying to touch on some different subjects to help players out, just like today with the recruiting. So, anyways, thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys so much for listening today. Check out onestoneapparel.com and these awesome vocab tees that they have. They're not just for PE. They could be great for camps, coaches. They make awesome logos just like this one that they created for us at little to no charge. So check them out, onestoneapparel.com. Talk to Dave at onestoneapparel.com.